Hello everyone, in this video we will see how we can use Zeit now with Angular for full stack development. So inside of our terminal, first we need to make sure we have Angular CLI and now installed globally on our local machine. For that we can type npm install -g at angular/CLI and we can install the another package called now. So once this is finished, we can actually clear the terminal here. So let's start by creating a new Angular project. So we can type ng new ng now starter. Okay, so here we can select yes for the routing, and then I want to use SCSS for the style sheet. So now this will take some time, so I will be back when it finishes. So once this is finished, we can change the directory to our newly created project, and then we can open it inside our code editor. I am using Visual Studio Code, the insiders field, so we can type code insiders dot, and this will open the project inside of the VS Code. So now we can open the terminal here, and then to run the application we can type ngserve --open. So this will build our project for the first time, and then it will open the project inside the browser. So this is how the default Angular application with Angular CLI looks like. Now let's go back to the editor. And so instead of ngserve, we actually want to use now dev. So we can actually close the server here, and then we can type now dev. So now this will use the now development server instead of the Angular CLI. So here you can see our server is already available at port 3000. So let's go back to the browser, and here we can type 3000, and now you can see the application running here. So inside of the editor we can go to source app and then app component.html. So let's remove everything inside this file, and let's keep this router outlet, and maybe at the top we can add the heading one here called Angular now starter. Okay, so now we can save it actually, and if we go back to the browser here and we refresh the page here, you can see we're getting this error here. So this is because with now dev, this is actually using our build directory, so this is dist in our case. So what we actually have to do is we actually want to use ngserve command. So we actually have to go to package.json, and here we have to define this script for the dev, and here we can type ngserve, and then we have to specify the port, and here we can add %port. Okay, so now if I save it and again I run now dev, so this will actually use this dev script. Okay, and here you can see in the preparing package.json, this is using this ngserve command, and now again we are getting this server available at port 3000, and then here is our build Angular application. So now if we go back to the browser and I hit refresh here, you can see we are getting this Angular now starter. So this is because I have added it inside of the app component.html, and now if I change it to maybe let's say update and hit save, and inside of the browser we can see this will auto reload, and then we will get the changes here. So let's go back to the editor now, and then what we can do is we can generate a new component. So let's name it message. So we will add ng generate component. Actually let's name it greeting. Okay, So this will actually generate the component for us, and then this will add the component inside of app module.ts. So let's close the terminal here, and now we want to use this greeting component inside of our app.html here. So what we can do is, if we go to greeting.component.ts, we can see the selector for this component is app greeting. So we can copy this, and now inside of app.component.html, so let's actually remove this, and we can use this component. Okay, so now if I hit save here and I go back to the browser, you can see we are getting greeting works. So this is coming from greeting component.html. So now let's add some styling in our application. So we can actually go to app component.scss, and we can target actually all the elements, and let's make the font family Montserrat. So this is actually the font installed on my local machine. So if we go back to the browser now, we can see the font has been changed here. So now let's add a couple of more styles. We can actually target h1 tag. So this is actually inside app component.html. So here for the h1 we can do text align center. Okay, and then if you go back to the browser, we should be able to see it centered. Okay, and now let's add some styles for our greeting component, and now we can go to greeting component.scss, and in here we can do host. So this will actually target all the elements. So this will be the root container element, and then I want to add here display grid, and then I want to use place items center. Okay, so this will actually center the items. So now let's change the background. So we can do background, and I want to make it color DD0031, so that will be the Angular logo color. And then for the foreground color, so that will be the text color, I want to make it white, so that will be FF. And after that we want to change the font size, and let's make it 2 rem, and I want to use text transform uppercase. So now we can actually save it, and now if you go back to the browser, we can see the change here. So we have this greeting works with the red background, and then we have this white text. Okay, so now let's create a serverless function with now, and then we will use the message from that function inside of this greeting works. Okay, so inside of the editor here, we can actually close everything for now and maybe collapse it. So let's create a new folder API, and then inside of that folder we will create a hello.js file. So that will act as a serverless function. With now, you are not restricted to using just JavaScript. You can use any language. You can use Go, Python, and then you can write your serverless function with it. So in this example, I am going to be using JavaScript. So to use or create a serverless function, we can do module.exports. Okay, and then we can use arrow function, and here we can specify the parameters request response. Okay, and then we can do response.send, and maybe let's add object message. So greeting from Zeit now. Okay, so this is going to be a very simple serverless function. And now what we can do is, if I go to terminal here, you can see the server is still running with now dev command. And if I go to my browser again and I hit /API/hello, so you should be able to see this message with greeting from Zeit now. So we are using now dev command to test the API or the serverless function locally on our machine. So maybe let's change it a bit. So if I go here and maybe let's try updating it, so we can add update and I hit save here. So now if I go here and hit refresh, so this will actually be building maybe. Okay, so we are getting built. And then if I go back to the browser and I hit refresh, you can see we are getting this update. Okay, so let's actually revert that change. Okay, and now let's see how we can use this JSON or this message inside of the Angular greeting component. So what we can do is inside of source app greeting, so let's actually create a greeting service here. So I will go to terminal and then we can type ng generate service and we can name it greeting. Okay, maybe let's add it inside of greeting, and after that we can run it with dry run first. So here we can see this will create 2 files. So let's actually remove the test. So we can do -- skip tests. Okay, so this will only create the greeting.service.ts file. So now we can hit enter here. So the option I think should be skip tests. Okay, alright, so now we can see our greeting service.ts file is created. So let's close the terminal here. And now inside of the greeting service.ts we can make the API call. So we first have to include HTTP client module inside of our app module. So here we can do HTTP client module. So we actually have to import it first. So we can do import from Angular common HTTP. Okay, so we want to import HTTP client module. So now we can save it and let's add semicolon here. Okay, so now inside of our greeting service.ts we can inject it. So we can do private HTTP client and we want to import it from Angular common HTTP. So let's add a service method here. So we can add get message. Okay, and here we can return this .http .get. Okay, and then we can do HTTP localhost 3000/API/hello. Okay, so now we can actually save it, and then inside of our greeting component.ts we can inject this service. So we can do private greeting service and then greeting service. So we have to import it. All right, and now inside of ng-on-init we can actually use this method. So we can do this greeting service get message. Okay, so with Angular with HTTP we will be getting observable, so we have to subscribe to it. So we can do subscribe and here we will get some data back, and then we will assign it to our maybe hello property here. Okay, so we actually have to add this hello property, so we will add it here at the top. Okay, and now maybe let's first add the console statement with data. So let's see if we are getting the data back. And now if I go to the browser, so if I open the developer console here by pressing F12 on the Windows, and maybe let's hit refresh once again, you can see we are getting this message with greeting from Zeit now. So this is coming from the serverless function. So this one, okay, greeting from Zeit now. And now to show it inside of our component, you can see we have assigned it to the property hello. So here inside of greeting component.html, we can do hello.message. Okay, so now we can actually save it, and if I go back to the browser now, you should be able to see greeting from Zeit now. And on the right we are getting this error, cannot read property message of undefined. We can easily fix it by adding ngif here. So we can add ngif hello, if and only if we have this hello property, so we will get this. And now inside of the browser we can see we are no longer getting this error here. And now let's try updating the function. So we can go to hello.js. So here we are getting greeting from Zeit now, and let's add greet now serverless function. Okay, so now we can save it, and now inside the browser we can hit refresh, and yes, we are getting greeting from Zeit now serverless function. So now you can see this is very powerful. So inside of the one application or maybe one root, we have both our API and then our front-end application. So now let's see how we can deploy our application to the now hosting. So inside of our editor, and if we go to actually greeting.component.ts, we can actually make one modification inside of this get message inside of this service. So we can actually remove this localhost 3000 as we are currently on the same domain. So we can actually change it to /API/hello. And if I go back to the browser now, this should work the same way, right? So now what happens is, to deploy our application, we can open the terminal here. And here we can actually type now. So yeah, that's it. So now this will actually build or actually push the application to the now server, and here we can already see the URL this will generate. So if I hit it in the browser currently, you will be able to see the build process this is going through. So currently this is running for 12 seconds, and once this is done, this will actually redirect us to this domain, and then this will actually show the application. Alright, so let's wait for it to finish. So now you can see our application is redirected to this URL that we have seen in the editor, and here we can see we are again getting this greeting from Zeit now serverless function. And if I go to console here, you can see we have this object for this message that is coming from the function. And if I go to maybe network and maybe let's refresh it once again, you can see we are hitting that API/hello in our production server also. Okay, so maybe let's add one more function. So we will actually copy this one, and now I will hit paste. So, and I will rename it to todos. So you can see we have this API directory, and whatever file we put here, hello.js, todo.ts, so that will become the path. So we can actually nest it. So we can actually do API, and then we can create a folder inside of it, and then we can create the function here. So that will become the nested path here. So but in this example I will use that todos. So here we can actually create a couple of todos. So I can add const todos, and I will actually copy it. So we can add it. Alright, and yeah, so that will be an array. So we can save it, and now here we can add todos, and then this will be todos. Okay, so now actually maybe let's stop this, and now let's run it first on our local server with the now dev command. And let's close the terminal here, and let's actually close the other tabs also. And now inside of the browser, if we go to our local URL and I hit API/todos, yes, you can see the list of todos here, right? Maybe we can show the list here also. Actually not here, on our local server here. So what we can do is we can go to greetings.component.html here, and maybe go to component.ts, and let's add a property called todos. And inside of the service, we first have to create a method. Okay, so we can actually add get todos. So we can do return this .http.get/API/todos. Okay, and now inside of our component, maybe here, we can do get todos here. So this will be this .todos equal to data. Okay, and here we can show a list. Okay, and then here we can first check for if we have any todos maybe, and then we can do a ng4, so that will be item or to-do of todos, and so this will be todos of todos.todos, because if you remember, we have this property called todos inside of the todos. So here we can do todo dot title. Okay, now we can save it, and then we can go back to our browser, and yes, we can see the list of todos there. Okay, so now maybe if I change the to-do, so let's change it to my new to-do. Okay, and now here I can hit refresh once again. You can see this is reflected here, and now let's deploy it once again so that we can see it on the live server. So we can close the server here, and then we can do now. So this will again push the code to the server, and then we will again get the URL. So this one, so we can actually copy this, and maybe let's paste it. And here you can see the build step. So the thing is, I think this creates the different URL each time. Okay, so now let it finish, and maybe in the meantime we can actually go to ng now starter. So this is actually the main URL, so you can actually hit that, and then this is the URL that will change every time we push. So this is, we have our previous application, and once we push again and again and again, we will get the new URL each time, and then the recent build will get this domain. So if I hit this, so you will be able to see the application that we previously done, and once the build is finished, so we will be able to see the application on this URL also. So let's wait for it to finish. So maybe let's click on it. So currently this is initializing, and now it is ready, so we can actually visit it. And yes, we will be able to see our application, and then you can see the data coming from the serverless functions. Okay, and as I said, this is the unique URL. So if we close it and then we go to this URL, so this will be actually the main URL of our application, so this won't change. And if we go to now starter here, and here you can see currently our domain is using this reset build. So that's how you can work with Angular and Zeit now.